Xin cảm ơn. Tôi xin kính mời giáo sư Townsend-Gault chủ trì phiên họp thứ 8. Tóm tắt lại phiên họp thứ 8.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would like to echo congratulations tendered to the organisers for what has been a remarkable 2 days, where a lot of new ground has been broken in considering South China Sea issues, not too insensitively, I hope, but it was time for some of the subjects once considered taboo for these to be discussed openly and objectively, and that has happened here and it's happening elsewhere. At the 20th workshop, I made the suggestion that workshop participants should be better informed about what is happening in meetings such as this. And we're going to make every effort to make sure that that happens, that issues such as the legal requirements for the statement of a claim, the significance of the infamous dashed line on the map, and so on, these are open for discussion now. They are not hidden away. And it is time that this has been done. My session 8, concluded only 40 minutes ago, and people do probably remember what was said there, pretty much. So I'd just like to make a couple of comments about the session and 1 or 2 other things, and then concluding remarks on maybe directions for the future. If we are concerned in the South China Sea about overlapping claims, well, session 8 had overlapping papers quite a bit, but it really, I think the division here was between Ian Story's very insightful discussion of the problems with confidence-building measures under the Declaration of Conduct and why that isn't happening. Where is the impasse? He identified some issues such as ASEAN states not quite getting the consensus that is required and reasons for that, economic strains and problems over the years, and the fact that some ASEAN members aren't really concerned about the South China Sea. And of course that in turn suggests that is ASEAN the best mechanism? It's certainly the best regional organization, but it really, there has to be a degree of acceptance, as there is in organizations like the European Union, that all 27 countries aren't equally interested in everything, but if there is an institutional engagement, then it requires everyone to play by the same set of rules and to become involved. And then I think Ian's final thoughts that what is the point of pushing for a code of conduct when we're not getting the declaration of conduct of the parties, making that work is probably the priority. Now, in the other 4 papers in the session I chaired, I think the common theme was moving forward, marked by many illustrations and discussions of examples of cooperation in many parts of the world. Before we got to that, Alberto Encomienda, in the written part of his paper, he hadn't time to discuss this, and I think there's a good section in the paper I would recommend, discussing how, and this came from the veteran diplomat's perspective, the various options for dispute settlement open to states. And this prompted a thought when I was looking at his section on judicial settlement, that those who propose sending sovereignty disputes to court, I don't think fully realize precisely what that would entail. Apart from the near impossibility of getting the consent of all concerned to actually do it, and why would they do this given that there's going to be one winner and several losers, it's going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars and take years. These international court cases are extremely expensive, right? They're not free. And the question would be, is this the best way to proceed, and indeed, would it actually, at the end of the day, resolve anything? The other paper, Alberto did have various, again, like the other papers, way forward, and what I think was very interesting about Wang Hanling's paper, Nasri Khalid, Fu Haidan, is the many examples, and they did have the same, well, certainly Wang Hanling and Mr. Dang had the same, almost the same slides, the same ideas. Mr. Dang also had a number of institutional proposals, which I think do merit further thought and study in terms of, well, what actually would we cooperate, under what aegis, under what basis, how would we go about doing it? And I think that's a sort of applied thought. Never mind, the idea is fine, but what exactly would we do? And what options are available? My comment on the discussions that they had, that the ideas they put forward, is that although we see many examples of joint development, and it's so many different ways, compare the zone created by Nigeria and Sao Tome and Principe with, say, the joint development zone in the Gulf, zones in the Gulf of Thailand. One is vastly bigger than the other. Are they actually working? Are they doing the job they're supposed to do? Are they delivering for the states and the various stakeholders? But also, of course, is there a reflection of this is something that the ruling elites in these countries decided to do, or did they say we are obliged to do this? And that's what I come back to from those various presentations about the role of international law in all this. Where are the obligations? What are the obligations, and are they being met? And of course, Nasser Khalid's discussion of the various economic imperatives and incentives, to which I could add to his list biological resources, the possibilities, inter alia pharmaceuticals, and all sorts of industrial uses, the sorts of uses that the UN Environment Programme says have barely been considered. This is, again, one of the big things in the Coral Triangle. So the concluding remark would be, I think, the emphasis on the role of international law, the fact that the sensitive issues are starting to come up. We need an objective discussion of these. We need an objective discussion of the role of historic claims. What exactly does that mean, given the implacable hostility of some major powers to the whole notion of historic claims, as Canada, among other countries, knows all about. The versatility of the various options for cooperative arrangements that the international community has come up with, and how they might be implemented. I get the impression from this that cooperation is now so accepted as a concept that 20 years ago, in the early years of the workshop process, it was regarded as dangerous, a potential enemy, a threat. Those days have gone, and we can then move forward on that basis. Two final points: the relative impoverishment of the South China Sea with respect to regional sea cooperation and management compared to other areas. I identified the Baltic and the Black Sea. There are many others that could be identified rather closer to the South China Sea. Those who echoed my call for action in the face of a deteriorating situation, and we had it this afternoon, graphic illustrations of where the problem lies. These are not trivial matters. These are matters literally of life and death. In terms of the future, I'm wondering whether we might not consider this series, if it is going to be a series, and I hope that it is, might consider how the interrelationship of the Gulf of Thailand and the South China Sea. Again, ecosystem experts would tell us that there is a link between the two, and therefore this then brings in Straits of Malacca perspectives, transit passage through Indonesia perspectives, in and out of the South China Sea. And my very final point is that inside this room there appears to be a happy degree of shared knowledge about what the issues are. Now the task is to share that with the rest of the region, the people who are not the experts. And the way to do that is to engage the media in the region and in each country, to explain to the media, ladies and gentlemen are taking photographs of us all at the moment, why what we're talking about is important, why it is time to lift our attention away from the old issues, not that they are no longer important, but they have been joined by other priorities, which do deserve our attention and do deserve the attention of the governing authorities of the region. That takes work, but in my experience working with journalists and broadcast print media, it's very rewarding, and it does raise the debate and raise the receptivity of the ideas and the expectations of people that their leaders will tackle the issues which are of grave importance to them and their region and future generations. Thank you very much.